very warm welcome to the NomadDoc Healthcare Stories podcast. This is the podcast where we tell stories from people in the healthcare ecosystem. So we'll be hearing stories from people who are healthcare professionals, from business people who are looking after the business side of healthcare, and from patients as well. We're hoping by listening to these stories and the journeys of all these people, we'll be able to change the narrative of healthcare one story at a time. So we hope you join us for the journey and we hope you learn from people's experiences. So very warm welcome to this episode. On this episode, we'll be talking to Abimbola Adebakin, who is the CEO and founder of My Medicines Limited. We will be talking about all things pharmacy and all things getting your medications in Nigeria, which is where she's based. So could you kindly introduce yourself and tell us about your company?
My name is Abimbola Adebakin, and you would say that I pursue getting access to affordable and quality medicines. That's my whole life now. My company is named Advantage Health Africa, and we have a number of solutions that we have put out there. One of them is quite popular called My Medicines.
That's correct.
So My Medicines is more or less our response to the question we have heard from people over and over, where they go from pharmacy to pharmacy looking for medication and they just can't seem to find it.
Yeah.
We said, come on, there must be a way to use what we have on ground to get this question answered. And so we kicked off and it's our flagship, My Medicines. And from then, doing that last meter, bridging the gap for people, we have done quite a number of things, backwardly integrating. We've integrated almost 1,000 pharmacies into a network called My Pharmacy. We've made ourselves large-scale distributors of key products. We are now thinking of various other things within the pharmaceutical value chain. But essentially, we make access happen for affordable and quality medicines.
Yeah, that's awesome because as you said, it's a big problem, and you could waste a lot of time with traffic, thrown into it, trying to find medication, which may, in some cases be quite urgent, maybe not emergency, but quite urgent as well. So you kind of allude to it as to why you started My Medicines. What is your why for sticking to the pharmacy space? So why not diagnostics? Why not, other areas of medicine? Are you a pharmacist by background?
So yes, I am a pharmacist by background, but I'm also a management consultant, and more importantly, I'm someone who looks at systems. And I've done that in the financial services sector. I've done that in entrepreneurship development. I've done it in for-profit and non-profit, public sector and private sector. And why I've said, let me come back home to do this thing. So when I say home, not that I was based abroad, but home to my base.
Yeah.
I realized that healthcare was taking longer to adopt to technology.
Yeah.
Healthcare was taking longer to, embrace innovation. In a world that was changing where people could order their food, we were still insisting on people coming all the way to the pharmacy and it was costing money. You are leaded to it. Sometimes you're going from place to place and you get frustrated or you hit a supply that is not so, above the top. It's fraudulent.
Yeah.
So I came back here to save lives, really, because almost 80% of all visits to the medical doctor results in you getting a prescription. So if 4 out of 5 results in prescriptions and we're having failures in fulfilling those prescriptions, then we're perpetuating illness that shouldn't be perpetuated. Some are urgent, some are emergency cases.
Yeah.
So I saw no reason to opt out of pharmacy. I've done management consulting for big weeks and I realized, look, in your own home, come back and do what you can to help build the systems and the structures that are needed.
Yeah. And we're very grateful that you're innovating in this space because it really is a fulcrum in the healthcare ecosystem, actually. So what are the challenges? Because My Medicines has developed a digital strategy to, as you mentioned, to addressing this problem. What are the challenges of managing a digital pharmacy compared to running a physical pharmacy?
Okay, so a digital pharmacy comes with both upsides and those downsides that I'll explain as challenges.
Yeah.
The upside is without a physical constraint, I
Yeah.
can serve any and everybody, right?
Yes.
So it's like the world is my oyster. The whole of
Absolutely.
Nigeria is my oyster, so long as it's within my regulatory field. However, how do I serve the gentleman in Adamawa and also serve the lady in Ilorin?
Mm.
How do I make sure the fisherman in Bayelsa is served well and the nomad that is moving from place to place is also served well? You know.
Yeah.
So the first challenge was we didn't have the asset heavy inventory to serve all of these people. Therefore, we
Yeah.
quickly brainstormed and said we must aggregate physical independent pharmacies who carry the inventory.
Yeah.
And so we were the first to do that aggregation. There were others that were serving them in bits, but not as an aggregation. So
Yeah.
that was the first challenge. We needed the inventory and we couldn't, of course, afford it. So we started out asset light. The second is seeing or having a deep or a look into that inventory required some real time, online real time inventory management software which we've now built. But when we started to play with messaging apps like WhatsApp, like Telegram. They were emerging at that time, shortly
Yeah.
before it was BlackBerry. But we went into in the era of WhatsApp, forming groups,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, do you have this? This is a picture of what we will need." And pharmacists began to open up and say, "Okay, okay," and now it's
Yeah.
so common. So the technology needed to be built, and we've done 4 iterations of it. We think we have cracked it finally,
Yeah.
and we're hoping that now the technology can be entrenched within the pharmacies. But each
Mm.
pharmacy has what they're using on the other.
Mm. Mm.
If they're not using one
Yeah.
solution or the other, they're using Excel or a paper register. Now, how can I make that transition for 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 pharmacies to use one single platform that not just serves them in their business operations, but
Yeah.
helps me see their inventory and I can move their inventory fast?
Yeah.
How do I sell the upside to them as well as the downside that they need to shift or integrate with this one, which is called the advantage? So
Yeah.
that's an uphill task that we're cracking. When
Yeah.
we crack it, we'll let you know. But we started we started cracking it. I think
Yeah.
another challenge is the fact that Nigeria is so dependent on importation. Any
Yeah.
small fracture in our supply chain line from the manufacturers all the way down here could lead to a scarcity that we cannot, avoid. We now need for emergency and urgent medication needs. We're looking around, we're proposing alternatives. We're going, there's a big wheel we're spinning to make sure we match the desires of those who are seeking medicines through us.
Yeah.
We've more or less mastered the availability of genuine drugs, right? We're ISO certified in our
Okay.
processes. So we got the ISO 9001 very early. We were maybe one or two or three that I know, maybe the only online pharmacy that I know anyway, that has got that ISO certification. Now, what that does is that we have more scrutiny of our processes to get you genuine drugs. We're more painstaking in our approach. We don't do it just for ourselves, but even our fulfillment pharmacies also, are mindful that we've got
Yeah.
to be careful with quality. Well, above and beyond that, we want to make sure that there are no loopholes that are not seen
Yeah.
in terms of uh, uh, a pharmacy then running foul and getting medications changed for expiration and so on. It's
Mm.
not happening yet, but it could happen. And how do we breach that gap? So that's a challenge that we're constantly on our toes trying to make sure we never, deliver medications that are substandard.
Yeah.
I think the other is the price fluctuation that comes from that vulnerability to importation. So the way the naira, the macroeconomics move, and naira to dollar moves and shifts, and for 2, 3 years, that was very volatile. Now it seems to be stabilizing. So we're having prices stabilizing. But for 2, 3 years of our operations, you can imagine someone saying, I need your price list and I need it fixed for 6 months. No, we can't
Yeah.
fix it. We just cannot fix it. So we lost a lot of opportunities that way. But those that knew and understood the reality stayed on. And we've served more than 30 health insurance organizations so that their own patients can pick up medications through us with a more dynamic price list than what they would have loved. And maybe personal is also an issue. But we have some kind of angle to that because pharmacists are leaving the country rapidly. They are also looking for greener pastures.
Yeah.
And we've had to create a pipeline of young pharmacists working to
Okay.
improve themselves, their career through a program we run called PLSP, the Pharmacist Leadership Stipend Program. And some
Okay.
of them find their way in working with us. So I would
Okay.
say we're more fortunate than others in that we have enough pharmacies wanting to work with us. So those are some of the challenges and inadvertently some of the strategies that we're using
Yeah.
to also address that.
And I am blown away by that because you've vertically integrated and created everything around you to make sure that your entire supply chain is stabilized. To use
Stabilize.
that word.
It's stabilized and it's
So,
stabilizing.
because you alluded to a few things I wanted to sort of dissect a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and that is the logistics, the supply chain challenges. So, one of the key things you mentioned is the fact that we import a lot of things into Nigeria, and not just medications, but in every industry, we're very reliant on importation. So, where do you see as a nation, as an African, as African nations, how do we address this problem? Because it is, once your supply chain isn't guaranteed, it's kind of hard, as you mentioned earlier on, to be able to regulate the rest of the business. Do you see a situation where the government steps in and subsidizes private companies to now have local manufacturers, of simple generic drugs that are off patent, for example?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about government subsidies, but
Okay.
definitely a more enabling environment.
Yeah.
What are the things? So it's a huge, big problem, and you can't have one solution.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of solutions, and keep padding it and making sure it works. So
Yeah.
at a point in time, making sure local manufacturers don't have to pay certain taxes,
Yeah.
like waivers, would help. So
Yeah.
that therefore they can probably import some raw materials that they need, mix
Mm.
it with local raw materials, and then give us, the finished product here.
Yeah.
But so those waivers, of course, it makes a lot of sense, and there are ways government is supporting that now that I really love. In the past 1 or 2 years, we've seen some announcements from government that will help with local manufacturing. I think the other part is finding those who are willing to develop the local ingredients needed, like excipients,
Yeah.
packaging,
Mm.
the active pharmaceutical ingredients, those APIs, and so on. So those are building blocks to
Yeah.
manufacturing. Now, if those are in place, then manufacturers can have a field day, but those need to be in place. So we still import largely those ones, and then we do some local compounding here.
Okay.
I think the third is that we need funds that are patient
Mm.
and not so expensive to invest in the plethora of areas that need to be addressed if you're going to focus on local manufacturing. For example, I would love to invest in my logistics playout. So it's asset heavy,
Mm.
but I'm going to take loans at 30, 40%. I cannot invest it in assets that are
Mm.
there that will yield my return in many years. Because the loans are short-term loans and they're
Yeah.
expensive. I need to quickly turn it around, and therefore I can't be asset heavy as I want.
Mm.
So it's a catch 22 for those of us that are there to get the right type of funding. So we're exploring things. I just had a meeting where one of my board directors suggested, why don't we look at commercial papers? So that may be fantastic if we
Yeah.
can, explore those types of funding sources. That would be awesome. I think another area the government can help is that they are attracting a lot of debt or grants or funding from the likes of World Bank and so. If
Yeah.
there's a pool they can put together and say, look, these are the players, the private sector working that we have recognized or kite marked in one way or the other, talk to them, speak to them, and they can somehow de-risk us or
Mm-hmm.
partially de-risk in whatever way, then those interactions might be better. For now, it is those of us taking the initiative to be known by IFC, known by so we're
Yeah.
being known in our tiny spots. We need bigger relevance and bigger visibility to get the fund because we are convinced. I am convinced there's money, but the money is chasing too few opportunities. So we need to be visible so that it can spot us and then chase us as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love how you analyze that. The cost of getting capital to invest in a company is definitely something that I think a lot of founders struggle with, and especially in the African healthcare ecosystem, because you're addressing, what business school people will call wicked problems, really.
Wicked. I say it a lot. We have wicked. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, then interlinked and fusing and
Exactly.
all of that.
Yeah. And if it's going to cost, as you mentioned, 30-40%. So if it's costing you, $15 to get $10, then it's a heavy loss already on the balance sheet, depending on how you look at what debt is and interest and everything else. Um, so again, just hanging around the logistics side of things, we've talked about importation and the limitations around that. We talked about sort of vertical integration. You mentioned earlier on about the concern for patients, which is the fact that you want to be able to guarantee the source of where your medications have come from. You want to be able to guarantee that you're not getting something that's expired, someone hasn't tampered with it, and things like that. What are the things that, My Medicines has put in place that allows patients to be able to see and maybe track the authenticity of the drugs, outside of what NAFDAC does with the number on the medications?
Okay, I mean NAFDAC is doing its own bit in making sure we can identify easily the NAFDAC approved medication.
Yeah.
But definitely we need to be able to, if we need to pick that number and throw it somewhere and see that it's authentic and it matches, that would be great if we
Yeah.
could readily do that. On our part, we don't allow the pharmacist to take the medicine and bring it to you. So for every we pick it up and bring to you. That way you have one point to blame if there's any issue. It might seem like a simple matter, but it's part of our quality assurance process that we send someone to take it to take it from the pharmacy and then bring to you. So there are tests that the person does, an assessment of checks of batch number, quality checks, packaging, sealing, the condition of storage, and storage all the way to you, and so on and so forth. So there are a number of things that I can't exhaust here.
Yeah.
The second is that every pharmacy that we work with must be licensed.
Yeah.
And you might think,
Yeah.
oh, well, they're licensed pharmacies. There are some that are not licensed. So
Yeah.
ours must be licensed. And that license says, look, you pharmacist, you have something to
Yeah.
lose if there
Yeah.
is a problem. So
Absolutely.
the responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility is on them, knowing that, look, I must, there's a name to be protected, there's a certificate to be protected, there's professionalism to be protected, and all. And then my team is constantly training and retraining. Just last night, we had an issue with a dispatch rider, and we went back to the drawing board till midnight. We're coming up with ideas. How can we
Yeah.
improve this? How can we incentivize that delivery to make sure the experience, this is now convenience and experience. The
Yeah.
experience of our users is one that they will love and they'll keep loving and all. So we're constantly rejigging our own internal processes. We've got SOPs. We have to keep looking. We have team members that are experts in logistics, experts in fulfillment. We have clinical pharmacists that are on duty in shifts and so on. So we're doing quite a lot. But one beautiful thing I also did we didn't plan for
Okay.
but came out of the aggregation model is that if we throw a prescription, many eyeballs are on the prescription. So you have free consultancy from pharmacists. You know, there's polypharmacy happening there, there's stomach
Yeah.
happening there. So they check. So it's
Yeah.
not just one set of eyes that check. There are multiple eyeballs checking the prescriptions when we throw it in, and it's really beautiful. There are other things, but I think that we have room for growth, so we can scale this solution and address millions of users at the same time. That's
Yeah.
what we're working towards.
Yeah, and that's fabulous. Honestly, I think this is one of the biggest burdens for a lot of people,
Mm.
with regards to getting the medications that they need, either in an emergency or in a non-emergency. There were a couple of things you mentioned before, which I wanted to touch on, which we haven't yet, and that was about the ISO. People don't, for a lot of our listeners, they may not know what the ISO is. Are you able to explain a little bit about that so that people understand how that also feeds into, um, the processes that you've put in place to make sure everything's okay?
Oh wow! So it's a long process. So what
Yeah.
happens with ISO certification is that once you get it, you have to go through an audit every year, and then the certification is for 3 years. And if you need to renew, it's a fresh, thing and application.
Application. Okay.
But what happens is that external auditors come to assess our processes. They want to know from point to point to point. They want to see the SOPs. They want to see evidence that we're adhering to the SOPs. They want to see that it's live. They want to interview. So they interview people without me, without the top management. They need independence of responses.
Oh,
They check our suppliers. They check some of the fulfillment pharmacies. They go. I just think, I mean, sometimes if you were not the one who invited them, you feel that you're being assessed as though you're criminals.
yeah.
But we invited them
Yeah.
because we think that achieving the ISO certification shows our commitment to quality. And it has
Absolutely. Yeah.
built trust. It
Yeah.
built trust with our customers. It's built trust with stakeholders. We're demonstrating that we maintain operational best practices. And
Yeah.
for me, it's worth the while. It's worth the
Yeah.
while. We've been ISO certified now for maybe 5 years, 4 or 5, no, not to 5 years, because in November we're going for another recertification, another update. So that for us is a beautiful international standard that we were
Yeah.
first to go into it or early to go into it, that has proven that we're very serious and mindful, that we're dealing with medicines that once you consume it goes into your body. So we're not just pharmacists that know about the pharmacokinetics or pharmacodynamics of drugs. We understand the quality issues of what to get to the consumer.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I'm going to pick a little bit on your pharmacy expertise here. So,
I hope
you know,
I.
no, it's just, so in the UK, for example, we have the yellow card system, which
Mhm.
allows people to report any reactions to drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the structure is, if that's also, if there is something similar in Nigeria or in any other African country.
So we're going to get to that point where
Okay.
it's well recognized and well adopted. So the
Okay.
yellow card system is a method to promote knowledge of adverse drug reactions. And adverse meaning that they're not side effects that have been known and documented. They're adverse that they could just be crazy reactions. You could have swellings to something that you took, not knowing that it's one of the possible reactions. So right now, there are some tech solution providers that are beginning to look into those
Okay.
adverse drug reaction reporting, and there are
Yeah.
tools, apps that you can just use, but they're not yet common. And NAFDAC has been working with some
Okay.
bodies to report, but ours, we've got a call center that is open for most hours of the day that people can report to.
Okay.
to the pharmacists. We have clinical pharmacists on duty that they can report to, and there are what do you call them, slots on the website that you can also make it an issue.
That's truly fabulous. Again, just exemplary of how My Medicines is building its own infrastructure where
Yeah.
there isn't one outside, in the formal infrastructure system. Sort of my last question to you then, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to like come in and tackle a problem in the healthcare ecosystem, especially on the African continent, or we can even go even further and say Nigeria?
So there are many problems, and
Yeah.
the way I see it that keeps me sane is to see it like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
And so there are different pieces, and it's all being mixed together. I would say pick one and solve for that one, and then place it on the table. And then through integration, through connectedness, through collaboration, we can eventually paint the right picture. So some people are solving for health financing at the level of the pharmacies.
Yeah.
Patients is doing that. Some people are solving for connecting the pharmacies with suppliers. Some people are solving for connecting the pharmacies like us with
Yeah.
consumers.
Yeah.
We're also solving for consumers paying, buying their medicines now and paying later. We're putting in place subscription solutions so that you can pay a subscription fee and get your
Yeah.
medication for a long period. So we're solving different aspects. Just
Yeah.
focus on access, availability, quality, financing, or affordability, things that would make it all add up, but recognize that you can't do it all.
Yes.
So one of the things we do is that there are telemedicine providers, physiotherapy, home care providers, elderly care providers. They come to My Medicines and want to integrate. And we're happy for that. So they know our expertise is getting the drugs to the last mile, right?
Yeah.
We'll get the drugs, we'll do the discovery, we'll do the verification, and we'll get it there. So their own problems are sorted for that, and then they can focus on their own areas of expertise. So we're very open to collaboration. We're known as collaborators. The thing, some people say that's our middle name. So My Medicine collaborator XYZ. So we collaborate a lot, and I think that way the industry can move forward, the ecosystem can move forward.
And I love the way you beautifully just ended that. But I will say I completely agree. You have agreed to kindly collaborate with us on NomadDoc, which has been a wonderful thing and will be a great offering for our clients when they sign up to NomadDoc. So we're very grateful to be working with an amazing company that's innovating and being the exemplary company in the pharmaceutical industry. So I will end this by saying thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you for talking to us about the challenges in the pharmaceutical space. Thank you for talking to us about the business side of it and how that feeds into the structure and the infrastructure that delivers to the end patients. We're very grateful for the conversation and yeah, see you soon.